Come read with me. I am reading from my second book in the series, As I Recall, and this is It Takes Two. A little bit me and a little bit you. Homecoming. This is the second chapter. All through the summer of 1967, I worked and waited for Dale to be released from Basic Training and Advanced Infantry Training School, AIT. I wrote many letters to him as he did to me. We had planned to marry in the summer of the following year after I completed high school and received my diploma. It was important for me to finish because none of my older sisters had. They all married before completing high school. Although I wasn't fond of school and I wasn't a great student, I had set my goals a little higher. I wanted to enter marriage with my diploma in hand. Dale returned from Fort Benning, Georgia, private first class in the Army Infantry, 9th Division. He graduated one of the tops in his class. His commanders had offered him officers' candidate school because they recognized his leadership abilities, but he was not interested in becoming an officer. His plan was to complete his 2 years and then to leave the military. I was 17 years old and Dale was 20. I had completed my junior year of high school while he was away in Fort Polk, Louisiana, going through basic training in AIT. Dale wrote to me that he was going to be sent to Vietnam upon completion of AIT. Because neither of us knew what was the outcome of his time in the war, or knew what the outcome of his time in the war would be, it was his desire that we get married prior to him leaving. He came home with only 28 days furlough before being flown to Vietnam. He would be gone for a year, if he survived to return. I agreed to move the wedding date up. I figured that once he left, I could return to school and graduate the following June while he was gone. I spent most of the summer preparing for the wedding. At the beginning of summer, I got hired to work at Bailey Manufacturing, where they made Levi jeans. I was making a good wage of $1.40 an hour. Minimum wage was $1.25 an hour. I worked along with two of my sisters and we rode together in the same car. Both Fonda and Joyce had been hired after taking a dexterity test. The test was mostly putting different shaped pegs into holes. They were timed on how quickly they completed the puzzle. They were both very fast. In manufacturing, speed and dexterity are desirable. Both my sisters were quick with their hands, so when I applied, they assumed I also would be fast and didn't give me the test. I had never before observed an assembly line operation, and it was fascinating to see how a pair of jeans came together from pattern to pressing. It was quite an undertaking. The process began with the fabric being laid out in many layers atop a huge platform that was raised about 4 feet higher than the sewing floor. The pieces of the jeans were then cut with a type of jigsaw on a long arm apparatus above the table, and the stacks of individual pieces were then moved onto rolling carts and shuttled by runners to the seamstresses. One cart would have nothing but back pieces awaiting the hip pockets. Other carts would have the front leg pieces. Others front pocket assembly pieces. Then there were the zipper installers and the pressers, leg stitchers, inspectors, and hemmers. Each station had a specific task to be accomplished, so every pair of jeans probably went through the hands of at least 20 people before completion. When I applied, there was an opening in the hip pocket stitching area. That's where I was assigned. I was familiar with sewing machines because I had been around sewing all my life. I had made many of my own clothes, but commercial machines are a little intimidating. It took me a while to get comfortable with the speed and power of the machine. I didn't want to make mistakes, as they would come back to me and require a do-over. Time is money in any business, and speed is king in manufacturing. The line supervisor was constantly yelling at me to work faster. It wasn't my favorite way to work. It was stressful. As an artist, I am more of a detail-oriented person. There was, however, good things about working there. The snack bar was great. At morning break, I would order a BLT, bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich. They were really delicious. Food always tastes better when someone else cooks it. Sometimes one of the other employees would have items they offered for sale, like Avon, Tupperware, or other goods. Someone was selling shoes. I ordered my wedding shoes, white T-strap, open-toe pumps, while working there. Although manufacturing wasn't my favorite type of work, I continued working there so that I could afford to pay for our upcoming wedding. 3 of my older sisters had already married, and each of the girls helped to pay for their own weddings. My parents had low income. There was no extra money for frivolities. At that time, it was not common for the parents of the groom to help pay for the weddings. They may have helped him a little, I don't know. My older sister Dee helped me by sewing my wedding dress, the bridesmaids' dresses, and the flower girls' dresses. I paid for the fabric. I also paid for Dell's ring. Mama made my floral bouquet from the wood fiber flowers she was known for. I paid for the materials. I sewed my own going away dress and paid for the ingredients for the wedding cake, which a friend of Mama's from church made. We didn't have a rehearsal dinner because we attended church there. The use of the church was free. Dell paid for my rings, the flowers, and our first home rental, a tiny single-room grandma-style house for $40 a month on the alley of Pulaski Avenue in Clovis. It was near Dell's family. Our place was on the alley, had a small driveway and a wire fence. Dell's sister and brother-in-law lived across the alley from us in a very small house. Looking back, I find this all incredible, but then it didn't seem unusual at all. Dell came home from basic and AIT a few days before the impending wedding day. He was thin and gaunt. He brought me a gift, a gold push pin with the Army insignia in gold on one side and a red heart connected by a short chain on the other. On Wednesday, 2 days before the wedding, Dell wanted to take me to Roding Park for a picnic. We hadn't seen each other or talked to each other aside from letters for 9 weeks, and he wanted to spend some time with me. Mama said, "She can only go if you have a chaperone." Dell indignantly said, "I am a gentleman. I am trustworthy. I am marrying her in 2 days. I will be taking her to the park, and we won't be having a chaperone." What could she say? She let me go. I was glad to be with Dell again. When he left for basic training, he had left his car in my sister's garage with the motor removed for rebuilding. He hadn't had time to finish it before reporting for duty. He borrowed his mother's car. I was happy we were getting married and we would be together without all the rules and family meddling. The picnic was a simple affair. We took some hot dogs, buns, and chips to beautiful Roding Park. It was late September, but the weather was balmy and the trees were beautiful. Dell roasted the hot dogs on a standing grill while I sat on the end of the picnic table talking to him. Every once in a while, he would walk over and kiss me, then go back to cooking the hot dogs. We just enjoyed being together for the rest of the day. We were married that Friday night on September 29, 1967. It was a beautiful wedding, even on a shoestring budget. During the reception, someone passed around my shoe for a money collection. It is a good thing they did because we were both pretty well without funds by this time. After the wedding, we had a late dinner at the Chuck Wagon restaurant and spent our wedding night at the Motel 6 on Blackstone Avenue. The following morning, we had breakfast at Sambo's restaurant. As we were having breakfast, an older couple near us asked genially, "When is the baby due? Do you think it will be a boy or a girl?" Dell and I were both embarrassed. My face turned beet red. Dell and I were both virgins until our wedding night the night before. "We only got married last night," I shyly replied. The couple, also embarrassed, apologized profusely. The confusion was due to my dress style. I was quite skinny, at 100 pounds. I had no tummy at all, but the current style was a fitted underdress with a blousy chiffon overdress. Mine was pink satin with a blousy pink floral lace overdress. And that sound you hear is the military jets training. They're very close to me here, and I'm comforted to know that they're practicing and being prepared for us. They often fly right over my house. give them a minute. They'll be on their way. Okay. With a blousey chiffon overdress. Mine was pink satin with a blousey pink floral lace overdress. I hadn't considered when I made it that it might appear to be a maternity dress. It was the style of the times. After breakfast, we went to the white front store on North Blackstone Avenue to pick up a few things for the house. We needed flatware, sheets, and cooking pots. Dell led me to the women's clothing section, walked over to a rack, took out a pair of brown jeans and handed them to me. "Try these on," he stated. So I took them into the dressing room and tried them on. "Let me see," he said. When I came out to show him, he saw that they were a perfect fit. How did he know? "Wear them," he said. He took the price tag off so that he could pay for them. Until my marriage, I had never been allowed to wear pants. They were considered men's apparel and forbidden by my mother. Dell decided right away that he was going to fix that. Later in the day, we met up with Dell's sister and her husband, and we all drove to the mountains to spend the day. That was the extent of our honeymoon. There was no money or time for anything else. We hardly had time to consummate our union for all the friends and family who stopped by to see Dell and insisted on monopolizing his time. They knew that because he was going into war, it might be the last time they would see him, and they, like me, wanted to make the most of every moment that he was still with us. It's quite warm out here, so. We did, thankfully, have a few moments of private time. But for the 21 days we had together, there was nearly always someone with us. We went to the Fresno Fair with his middle sister and her husband. Sometimes Dell's friend Roger would come over. There were visits from his older sister, his younger brother, cousins, friends, and neighbors, and the rest of his immediate family. One day, we and his whole family spent the day at a local park. Everyone wanted to spend some time with him before he left for his one-year tour of duty. He wore his uniform, and I wore the pink dress that had caused the confusion the day of the wedding.